Hey, hello English 401, hello Internet. I'm your instructor today, Jess Flaherty for the University of New Hampshire. Today we're going to be talking about the rule of threes in sentences. So, maybe you've commented on some of your papers, and we've been talking about all semester about how you need to use cumulative sentences about 70% of the time in your writing. That means you've got a sentence that has a lot of information in it, usually at least three different parts to the sentence. Now, if you look at all of these essays in the writer's presence, pretty much all of them have three-part sentences, cumulative sentences, most of the time. This is an advanced technique that writers who've been writing a long time just sort of fall into because it makes the essays more readable. If you look at transitions, if you look very closely, you might notice those sentences don't quite hit the same arcs as these sentences. Again, this is the grand masters, and those are like the very good apprentices. So uh, today we're going to be analyzing the first part of The Empathy Gap by Shelly Turkle. So we've already read this. I highly encourage you to go into whatever your favorite essay was in the writer's presence and do the same exact thing that I'm doing here. Write it out by hand and then closely analyze the different parts of the sentence to see how it works and how to write your own essay effectively. Now, why do we use three parts for each sentence? It's because the rule of threes are kind of magical. Three is a magic number. Look it up for Schoolhouse Rock. Okay, Aladdin gets three wishes. Most plays have three-act structures. Stories have three little pigs, right? Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Your day has three parts to it. You wake up, you have your afternoon, and then you have the evening. You go to bed, right? Your life has three parts. We're born, we live, and we die. So threes are very integral into the world itself and in writing. So let's look at Shelly Turkle, The Empathy Gap, in order to sort of analyze how her sentences are working. So it starts out, when I first began studying online life in the early 1980s, okay, this is part one of her first sentence. We're giving, also, she's giving us a time here, something to stick to. Very smart of her to do that. When I first began studying online life in the early 1980s, part one, I saw it was a place where people had an opportunity to express aspects of themselves, part two, that were typically repressed in their daily life, part three. Okay? One piece of information, two pieces of information, three pieces of information. Next sentence. Back then, again, she has this callback to that time, the 1980s, very tricky of her. Back then, part one, they did this in simple online chat rooms, part two, and more elaborately, when they constructed game avatars, part three. And she's almost got this little, kind of like 2.5 step here when she says more elaborately. She's saying, hey, and this other thing also. But that's still kind of a three-part sentence with a little bit of like a bell and a whistle on there. Now, look, this is fascinating to me. That's why I chose this essay in particular. Not only because I think it's a great essay, but this is a really well-constructed first paragraph. In those days, see how she starts this paragraph off? Again, she's doing the same thing, calling back to the 1980s with the first part of her sentence. So she's really linking you up to how this was in the 1980s. In those days, part one, I was something of an enthusiast, part two, trying to alert clinicians, and this is a big list, like psychologists, psychoanalysts, psychiatrists, social workers, and pediatricians, that's like part four, to the importance of these new digital spaces, part five. So she has an even longer sentence here. She's got 1, 2, 3 sentences that are all cumulative sentences. Look at this next sentence. In particular, again, she has this little thing she starts out with, similar to these spots. First part, I hope my work would make psychotherapists more comfortable with technology, part two, and make them feel that they had a role to play in its initial development, part three. In essence, next sentence, part one, My message to psychotherapists was this. Part 2, here's a technology that functions as a kind of intimate machine and touches deeply on the questions of identity. That's kind of a 3 in part 4. All of these sentences she's using are cumulative sentences. She does, right after this, have another short sentence that she punches it up with. That kind of gets the flow, breaks up. You don't want to have all long sentences, right? Because you're going to exhaust your reader if you do that. But I highly suggest you take this same technique and you apply it to any of your favorite essay from the writer's presence and look very carefully about how that author has constructed those sentences, because you'll start to see and hear this rhythm that's passing through it. These 1, 2, 3 punches over and over in their sentences. And that's going to make your own writing even more effective. Please email me if you have any questions or if you're struggling with any research or anything. We are going to be workshopping again on Thursday. Hopefully you have at least 3 pages for Thursday's workshop. All right, we'll see you then. And goodbye.